So let's get uncomfortable, because this is where the silence starts to crack. So the last segment, we talked about how the word groomer has been twisted into a political weapon. But now we're going to talk about who's actually doing the grooming. We're talking facts, not fear, or if we're talking receipts, not rhetoric, because the truth matters more than their talking points. And if you're one of the people out there screaming about protecting children, then this is the part where you need to listen the hardest, because the actual danger, it doesn't look like drag queens. It does sound like queer teachers, or it doesn't sound like drag queens. I'm trying to get my words together today. And it's not the teachers reading a book that makes you uncomfortable. It looks like people kids trust. People who wear collars. They carry Bibles, lead prayers. People who have access, authority, and institutional protection. So let's start with something that should be required reading in every school, church, courtroom, and legislature in the country. According to the United States Department of Justice and the CDC, 93% of child sexual abuse victims know their abuser. That's not some shadowy stranger in a van. That's a coach. That's a babysitter, a family member, a pastor. And around 60% of abuse is committed by someone in the child's family or extended circle. Less than 10% of cases involve strangers. And get this, statistically, there's no link between LGBTQ plus identity and child abuse. None. Oh, but there is a link between unchecked authority and abuse. Let me repeat that. Because sometimes people are deaf or they choose to ignore this. There's no correlation between being gay or trans and being a predator. But there's a clear pattern of predators operating in trusted spaces with zero oversight. And what's more protected in this country than the church? Let's talk about the big one. The big one, the Catholic Church, everybody knows about this. This isn't just a scandal, it's the damn system. We now know that since the 1950s, over 300,000 children worldwide have been sexually abused by clergy. In the United States alone, more than 19,000 victims have come forward, and that's just the ones who know about it. Now, if you want to know 19,000 victims, that's filling up in a basketball arena. That's how many kids have been abused. Some dioceses like Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, Philadelphia have had hundreds of accused priests. And the church's response? Shuffle them between parishes, silence the victims, fight legislation that will open up all cases, use non-disclosure agreement to bury the truth. And here's the bottom line. The Catholic Church has paid out over $3 billion in settlements, and they still fought to keep names redacted in reports. Let that sink in. This institution, which calls itself the moral backbone of civilization, actively protected known abusers and spent more on lawyers than on healing the survivors. And yet, where's the groomer headline for them? Now let's shift to the largest Protestant denomination in the United States, the Southern Baptist Convention. In 2022, the SBC released a long-awaited internal report. It confirmed what survivors had been screaming for years. For 2 decades, the Baptist Church leaders cover up hundreds of abuse cases. They kept a secret database of abusers. They ignore or intimidated the victims. Oh God, today's just not a day. And they kept abusers in positions of power in churches with children. Over 700 ministers and volunteers were named. And still, the Southern Baptist Church leadership tried to claim this was an isolated issue. Yeah, because 700 ministers abusing is isolated. Not a pattern, not systemic, nothing. Just an isolated. But here's what the report proved. They didn't just fail to protect the children. They made a choice to protect their image instead. And if you're still screaming about a rainbow sticker in a classroom, but you say nothing about this, and you still supported the SBC, you're not worried about kids. You're worried about the control. And let's not pretend this ends with Baptists and Catholics or evangelicals. Jehovah Witnesses, they've been exposed in dozens of countries for shielding abusers. In 2018, an Australian commission found they had 1,006 alleged abusers on file and reported 0 to police. What about the Mormon Church? Thousands of allegations. Recent investigations in Arizona and Utah found that Mormon bishops were instructed to call a church hotline, not law enforcement, when abuse was reported. And what do all these stories have in common? Well, let me tell you. 1. A refusal to report crimes to police. 2. A fear of hurting the church's reputation. 3. A system that prioritizes loyalty over safety. You don't need a conspiracy theory when the documents are this public. This is an epidemic, not of queer identity, but of protected power in the church. And I want to step back for a second and remind you. These aren't just headlines, guys. These are real people, real kids who trusted adults to guide them, who were told this is a man of God, and who these kids were violated and then silenced, even told that this was their fault. Some of them tried to come forward and they were told to pray on it. Some were gaslit into believing they caused it. See what I just said? Some took their own lives. And meanwhile, the church kept building new campuses, kept collecting donations, and they kept preaching purity while hiding predators in their ranks. Let me say this clearly. There's nothing more demonic than using God's name to protect evil. So here's the question. Why do people still stay quiet about this? Why is it easier to scream at a drag queen reading a storybook than to question a youth pastor? Because these churches have power, sadly. Not just spiritual, but political, economic, and cultural. Many Americans still believe that churches are untouchable, that questioning them is an attack on faith. But let me ask you this. Is faith the same thing as silence? Is religion the same thing as loyalty to corruption? Is love thy neighbor only for the unbroken? Because if your church teaches that real threat is a gay teacher who just wants to exist, but says nothing about pastors who prey on children, then that's not faith. That's indoctrination. Oh, look at that. And so who's really doing the grooming? Not queer people, not trans youth, not the drag queen reading. And it's pastors, priests, bishops, church elders. It's the people who were trusted and protected and enabled. And the same people who yell groomer the loudest, they vote for the cover-up. They tie to the institution. They write laws that protect the predator and punish the survivor. Let's not pretend we don't see what this is really about. Because this is projection, this is political power, this is spiritual rod wrapped in righteousness. So we're going to talk about how the church keeps getting away with it. Because hiding abuse isn't just a sin, it's a system. And that system is still very much in power.